So happy to be here. Would love to tell you a bit about what we're doing at StarkWare. So what I don't need to tell you is that blockchains have a scaling problem. And what I do want to make sure in that context to emphasize is that validity rollups, or as we often hear others refer to them, zero-knowledge rollups, are the future. And the purpose of this talk is to emphasize the point that they're not only the future, they're in fact the present. So what do I want to talk to you about? I want to talk to you about StarkX, which is our first offering. It's been on the market for over 2 years. This is a SaaS service that we offer, scaling as a service, essentially. What's under the hood there, and what we were forced to develop under the hood there, which is Cairo, our programming language that allows us to prove any business logic with a Stark proof. And finally, I want to tell you about StarkNet, which is the open permissionless network, layer 2, that we're building out using Cairo to settle on Ethereum and help it scale. So let's start with StarkX. It's the leading layer 2 on Ethereum. It's been live since June of 2020. Let me share some stats. So cumulative trading, StarkX has settled just over $750 billion over the past 2 years, over 250 million transactions settled on Ethereum. I can't stress enough, if you were to ask me a year or two ago, I would not have imagined these kinds of numbers. And these basically all feed into an increasing level of comfort with software stack and how battle-hardened it is, right? This is all software. Money is represented as software, as code. To the extent there is a hack, to the extent there is a vulnerability, it will be exploited. We have $500 million in total value locked. And one particular anecdote worth mentioning is that we've minted just under 80 million NFTs on StarkX to date, by far more than any other player in the ecosystem. These numbers, number of transactions settled, total value settled, number of NFTs far exceed all other layer 2s combined. You see here at the bottom some of the notable names that are scaling using Starks. And these are wonderful partners that we're very proud of having worked with over the past 2 years. Here's some recent numbers. This is from mid-October. And this chart shows, you can look here, the cyan is the Ethereum plot, and the blue is StarkX. And what you see here is that multiple weeks over the past 6 months, StarkX has settled more Ethereum transactions than Ethereum itself. Okay, these have been processed as a layer 2 and settled on Ethereum. And this particular week, a couple of weeks ago, 12 million transactions processed by StarkX, which is dramatically more than Ethereum itself. The beautiful thing is that this all relies on Ethereum security and Ethereum resources. All these proofs are verified on Ethereum. The verification consumed well under 1% of Ethereum's resources. So we use essentially 1 over 1,000, right? 1,000 of Ethereum's resources, and in the process are able to process way more transactions than Ethereum itself. These numbers basically manifest the ability to scale using Starks. Let me share some more anecdotes. One measure that I think is very interesting in this context is for various transactions, how much gas those transactions consumed on Ethereum layer 1, and how much those now consume in gas using StarkX. DYDX, for example, we're settling transactions on layer 1 Ethereum for anywhere between 250,000 gas to 300,000 gas. They've been settling tens of millions of transactions on StarkX at 480 gas. So 700x improvement in the gas per transaction. So Rare and Immutable have been minting NFTs for 200,000 gas per mint. They're minting now on StarkX at anywhere between 10 and 35 gas per mint. So 20,000x improvement. And when I try and drive the point home, I often say, I tell people, I told my kids, I'm unaware in the context of engineering, in the context of finance, of too many examples where resources have seen such a dramatic reduction, a 3-order, 4-order magnitude reduction as this. You know, if you look back, I don't know, the printing press, the Industrial Revolution, but these are massive step functions, and they're often, in fact, exclusively triggered by technology. And we think that Starks and zero-knowledge proofs are exactly one such technology. So in the process of building out StarkX, we implemented a particular set of business logic. Specifically, this was for spot trading. And invariably, your customers and new customers come in and say, well, can you do this? And can you do that? Can you change the business logic? Can you expand it? Can you mint NFTs? Can you trade NFTs? Can you do perpetual contracts? And as long as we were working, sort of translating directly the business logic into bare-bone, raw metal math, that was a very slow and dangerous exercise. There were about 5 people on the planet, fortunately all at StarkWare, who could do this stuff. It's error-prone, it's a security hazard, okay? And so the conclusion quickly was that this is not sustainable, that if we want the business to grow, we need a programming language that allows us to generate with code proofs for any logic. And this is how Cairo was born. It was born, as always, out of a necessity. And so Cairo is what was under the hood for StarkX, for our SaaS business. But then, very quickly, we said, hold on a second, we're now using it for StarkX. The thing to do here is to open up this language for any developer anywhere, okay? And this is, of course, driven by the ethos and the principles that guide us in building out decentralized ecosystems. But from a raw business perspective, the motivation here is to allow the business to scale out. If any developer can implement code and deploy it on the blockchain without talking to us, they win and we win. And so Cairo, one question we're often asked, I was asked on stage an hour ago, and apologies for anyone who's sort of hearing some of the same comments over again, is why didn't you actually use Solidity? And we would have loved to use Solidity as is. We came to the conclusion that this would be far less than optimal, okay? And in fact, by doing so, we would be tying these weights to our ankles, our proverbial ankles, in a way that would limit the scale and efficiency of these networks for years to come. And so we thought that the sensible thing is to take a bold step and introduce this new language. And that is a bold step. Now, I want to say in this context, looking 7 years back, this is not 70 years back, and I often have to remind people in the blockchain ecosystem, and they're often half my age, but I have to remind them that the Solidity software stack is 7 years old. Okay, this isn't something that's been around for decades. And in that sense, you could ask the question, hold on a second, why was Solidity invented? Why didn't they just code smart contracts on Ethereum using whatever, C++ or JavaScript, or one of the many languages that are used by Web 2 companies worldwide? And the answer is that they faced the same deliberation. They thought we could do it with existing programming language, but those are not smart contract languages. They were built for different needs and different specifications, and what we need here is something else. And so Solidity was invented. And so the concept that as you move to a new platform, as you move to a new paradigm, in certain cases, new tools and specifically a new language may be required, is not something that should be foreign to the blockchain ecosystem. So let's talk a bit about StarkNet. We announced the concept beginning of 2021, so almost 2 years ago. In June of 2021, we launched a public testnet supporting smart contracts, general computation, and composability. So everything that a smart contract developer would come to expect conceptually from a smart contract platform. We went live on mainnet in November of last year. And what we've seen since is an astonishing community form around StarkNet. We've had multiple events over the past 6 months, hackathons, StarkNet CC events, with 400 or 500 developers in attendance in each one of these. Our assessment is there are about 1,000 people right now writing Cairo code worldwide. Once again, that number a year ago, I would not have dared sort of imagine. Some numbers here on the performance of StarkNet. There's a lot going on, and we're very proud of that. The testnet is obviously busier than mainnet. I want to stress that there's a ton of work ahead of us, right? There's you optimize the prover and the sequencer, and the network becomes the bottleneck. You do all that, and you want to decentralize, and that in itself is our gargantuan effort. And so, we've been working our asses off. A team of 100 within StarkWare, many hundreds of developers across the ecosystem, building the various tools that need to be used here. And as of a couple of months ago, there is a StarkNet Foundation that's tasked with growing this ecosystem. Some additional numbers on the excitement around this. One particular number that I want to point out is there are about 20 startups that are sort of StarkNet native. And when they went out to raise money going a few months back, it was far from obvious to me that they won't come back and say, we talked to the VCs and they said, too early, we're not interested in doubling down on this whole software stack. Let's wait and see that it picks up some steam. And in fact, what we've seen is an abundance of interest from a very broad set of venture capital firms. So what I told you about today are the 3 steps sort of in the product evolution at StarkWare, starting from the SaaS offering, StarkX, Cairo that we had to build to support the sort of feature velocity that we wanted for StarkX, and then the conclusion that Cairo should be put in the hands of developers in a permissionless fashion, and that should be encapsulated as StarkNet. We've seen applications in a whole range of fields, right? Gaming, DeFi, social applications, and we're very happy to see that. From our perspective, we're a technology platform. We want people to explore far and wide. I want to say a few words about the future we see, and I talked about this on stage. We started out, of course, with Ethereum. We built out StarkNet as a public infrastructure to scale the network. And what we then basically encountered, once again, reality in the market speaking to us, is applications came to us and said, we cannot scale massively on public infrastructure directly. We want our own little environment. And so these are the layer 3s that we describe up here. And there, each participant can decide the pace and risk profile and risk parameters and technology stack that they use to their heart's content. And from our perspective, that's a perfectly viable outcome. We are not sort of the hardcore ideologues that say everything has to be done. The world is going to look like many Uniswaps. We don't think the world is going to look like many Uniswaps. There are Uniswaps, and then there are other applications and other companies with particular needs, and our job is to serve them. And from our perspective, that scale and that control that businesses need is going to exist at layer 3 and thrive there. The tools to support layer 3, specifically the ability to recursively prove, that's been in production on Ethereum mainnet for the past 3 months. So we are today actually using recursive proofs for Sorare, Immutable, Diversify, all the other systems we have in production, including StarkNet itself. General computation, recursive proofs, is something that was a scientific paper a couple of years ago. I just want to sort of impress upon you the pace of technology innovation here. That is all. Happy to answer any questions if there are. Yes, please.
Just 1 second. Let's get you a mic, because I know this is going to be a good question.
Yeah, I've got 2 questions. I understand that on mainnet Ethereum, you're verifying the roll-up and the execution that's happened on the layer 2. Are you able to bridge assets? Are you able to transfer assets to mainnet Ethereum from StarkNet?
You can withdraw assets, of course. You can withdraw assets from StarkX and StarkNet
onto mainnet.
To Ethereum.
Yep.
And of course, actually, beautifully, I don't want to take up too much time. You can do that even if the application, say, Sorare and StarkWare, vanish off the face of the earth. Users can withdraw assets directly from the smart contract. And by doing so, we basically tie our hands in the sense of we are unable to censor them.
Yeah, okay, good. Second question, zero-knowledge proofs are often associated with privacy as well. Is that a feature? Is that in the roadmap? Is that something?
So my co-founder Eli is the founding scientist of Zcash, and of course that was the focus there. That is very much on the roadmap. Because it's a beautiful sort of capability of zero-knowledge proofs. But I think the business response is that businesses are going to need it. And human individuals are going to need it, right? All of us, but businesses are going to need it. No, even if we offer everything that we've described here to Web 2 companies, when they come in and say, hold on a second, we don't have proper privacy and we cannot engage in business that way. So that's going to come, it's a must. It's further down the roadmap.